Hello, my name is Dorit Rice. I'm a professor of law in the University of California, Hastings College of the Law. In this video, I want to explain what the recently ended lawsuit between the Informed Consent Action Network, ICAN, and the CDC does and does not show. The short version is that the lawsuit cannot be used to claim vaccines cause autism because the CDC has extensive evidence showing vaccines do not cause autism, and because Freedom of Information Act cases are about providing records, not proving things. Basically, all the dismissed lawsuit says is that records that satisfy the request were provided, the parties agreed to dismiss the lawsuit, and ICAN cannot bring the same lawsuit again. In December 2019, ICAN filed a lawsuit under the Freedom of Information Act, usually referred to as FOIA, requesting that the CDC provide two kinds of studies. First, studies showing that specific individual vaccines, like DTaP or hepatitis B, don't cause autism. And second, that the group of vaccines given together by 6 months of age does not cause autism. ICAN did this to challenge a web page on which the CDC says that there is no link between vaccines and autism. I will add the list in the description to make it easy. Most of the complaint tried to show that vaccines cause autism. First, this is not a good use of FOIA. The Freedom of Information Act allows citizen and organization to ask government for existing record. It is not an appropriate tool to demand that government prove something or explain something. There are situations in which citizens can take government to court for not explaining things, but it would not be through a FOIA lawsuit. Asking the CDC to prove something is just not a valid FOIA request. A court could never rule that vaccines do or do not cause autism in this suit, or that CDC did not prove that. It can only rule on whether the CDC has to give the requested records or not. And the CDC has a good argument against the lawsuit. They could say that this was not a case asking them to provide existing records, but a case asking for records and materials that do not exist. To comply, the CDC would have to make new records and collect new materials, which FOIA doesn't require. But instead, CDC settled. Why? Well, we don't actually know. But parties often settle simply because litigating something is not worth their time. This looks like a situation where the CDC decided it was not worth the time, especially during a pandemic when they're focused on the coronavirus issues. And when ICAN agreed to accept a list of studies, CDC quickly put together a list just to make the case go away, probably without a lot of effort going into that. Second, to conclude that there is no link between vaccines and autism, CDC does not need the specific studies that ICAN asked for. CDC and expert bodies all around the world went through the same process, looked at the totality of the evidence. Many studies addressed the question of whether vaccines cause autism. Some looked at specific vaccine claims, like whether MMR causes autism. Others looked at the entire schedule of vaccine generally and their risks. As Dr. Vince Iannelli, writing Vaxopedia, points out, some of the specific studies cover the vaccines that ICAN asked about. There are also studies addressing what does cause autism. We know genetics plays a major part, and we know some environmental factors have a role, such as parental age. We also have studies that show that autism usually starts in the womb. Looking at all of that evidence, CDC was justified in concluding that there is no link between vaccines and autism, because that's what the large body of evidence shows. The Institute of Medicine, mentioned in the lawsuit, also concluded the same from the totality of the evidence. They have an entire web page titled "Vaccines Do Not Cause Autism," with many links to additional materials. I will add a link to that in the description as well. So, this is a result that likely derived from CDC's desire to make a lawsuit that takes up time during an emergency go away. And I think we can all agree that we want them to focus on dealing with the emergency and not on responding to anti-vaccine claims. This lawsuit does not directly address whether vaccines cause autism. The settlement can't directly be used to answer that because the lawsuit could never go there. And using the settlements to try and counter the abundant evidence showing that vaccines do not cause autism is at best a mistake, at worst actual dishonesty. Thank you for listening.